We're back again with the Z71. Today we're going to be installing the long tube headers from Kooks. This is what we're going to be installing. This is the part number, I believe. 45549. And we had some V-bands installed in the headers, because on the Camaro it has leaks due to the flanges, and we've seen some reviews online after we installed them on the Camaro that a lot of people had leaks. So on this truck we decided to just get some V-bands installed, and this is what comes with the kit. Comes with this, and then comes with some hardware, this bag and this bag, and it came with these header gaskets, but we're not going to use those. We're going to use the OEM gaskets. This is the part number, this is the other one, same thing. We got two of these. And for the muffler, we're gonna use a Borla Attack. We decided to go with Borla Attack because when the truck was lowered, we had the long tube headers, X pipe, and two Borla Attacks, and it sounded really good. So we're going with the Attack again. 3-inch inlet and outlet. So I'm gonna turn on the truck right now, show you guys what it sounds like. It's all stock for the exhaust. The only thing is that we cut the exhaust tip. I'll show you why. So back here, as you can see, we cut the fiberglass bedside, and we didn't want the exhaust to be hanging way down here or wherever it goes. So we decided just to cut it at an angle, and you can see everything is stock right there on the exhaust. So the plan for now is to do the long tubes, then get a white pipe 3-inch all the way to the back, and then dump it either before the axle or after the axle. We're still not sure, but if we dump it after, it's gonna end up roughly around there. So as you could tell, it is super quiet. We don't want it to sound really loud, but we want it to have a decent aggressive sound to it. So we're gonna go ahead and start removing this exhaust system, and hopefully we don't have to do any cutting. So we're underneath the truck. This is on the passenger side, and we can see that we're gonna have to remove this clamp right here. Well, not remove it, but get it loose enough to unhook it from this side of the pipe, and then we're gonna have to remove the hooks from these hangers back here, and that should be the first part to drop. So I'm gonna get some sockets. Oh, and also from here we'll have to unhook it from here. I think this one's gonna be a little more difficult. We might even have to cut this side. So I guess that's enough to be able to pull it off of this. Now for this side, I think we're gonna remove it from here, from the top hooks. I'm gonna spray a little bit of WD-40 on that. And then I'm gonna use this to try to put some pressure on the hook and remove it from the rubber. We were actually able to get it off pretty easy. We just used these to put some pressure on this and then pull the rubber off, because it has this little like lip right here that holds the rubber in. But it wasn't too bad. Now we can remove this off of the hook once the exhaust is off, and then we'll put the rubber back on. So we have to move over to the back to get the other two hooks. So back here we're gonna do the same thing. Put some WD-40 on those little edges, just so it could slide off easier. So next we're gonna use the same method. Just put some pressure on the hook and release it from the rubber. We have those two and this one right here. So I'm gonna try to show you what exactly we're doing. Just putting a little bit of WD-40. We have to get a decent amount of grip just to push that through. Like that. Here it comes off. So we're gonna have to get this over the axle in order to pull it out from underneath the truck. Now that we have that out the way, I think we're going to disconnect these O2 sensors right here. So it's like a little white tab. See if I can get some light on that. So you pull that back, and then you push this clip in, and it should release it. That little clip took some force. We pulled it back, and then you have to press on this pretty hard for it to release this. And we have to do the driver's side. Oh, actually, we also have another one up here. So, like that. So now let me get to the driver's side, disconnect both on that side, and then we'll see what's the next step. Okay, so on the driver's side, the plug was right here. And then for the second O2 up there, the plug is way up there. You can see it right there. So we have to unplug that one up there. So I'm gonna have to get, I don't know how I'm gonna get to that actually. Try to do it with one hand. I'll put you guys back on after I'm done. We were able to get it off. It wasn't too difficult. It was just kind of tight. Now we have 3 nuts that go to the exhaust header up here. And we have to remove all 3. And then that should free up the rest of this white pipe. And also 3 on that side, so there's 6 bolts, well 6 nuts that have to be removed in order for this to drop. And then I think we should be able to clear the cat or the cross member. We kind of don't feel like removing the cross member to get this white pipe out. So we were only able to remove one of the nuts that go up there. And we decided just to turn on the truck. So this is the truck with just the white pipe. Now that we got that out the way, we could go ahead and remove the rest of the nuts. Did this setup, the swivel, the 14, 2 extensions for a couple of them. We were able to get it out. So now we have to see how we're gonna drop this. So I'm gonna have to do it with 2 hands because it's gonna be pretty heavy, and then we'll go from there. I don't know if I can set up the camera right here. See if I can show you guys. So that side looks like it's gonna be getting stuck. I'm gonna try to mess around with it for a bit. So we have a new idea. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we're gonna remove the exhaust manifold, and then hopefully we're able to pull this up enough for the cat to come out through this opening right here, and then we'll let it slide out. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we're gonna give that a try. If not, we are gonna have to remove the cross member. So let's go back up on the side of the truck. Okay, so you can see that there is a couple of bolts. There's one there, another one right there, another one right there behind the steering shaft, another one back there. It's harder to get to that one. And then there's one back there. So there's 5 in total on each side. And to start off, we're going to remove the spark plug wires so we can get access to the bolts. We got the first one out. Now we got 7 more to go. And all we're doing is just pulling it out from here. And then we have to use these needle nose pliers to get the rest of it out. Just kind of wiggle it around and pull on it out. And it should come off. For this last one right here, where the oil dipstick is at, we're going to try to get it from the wheel well. Yeah, because from the top it was going to be a hassle. Now that we have all the plugs out, we are going to get to the 14mm bolts that hold the headers on. And it's going to be tight in here, so I'm not even going to put you on the time-lapse thing because there's no room for the camera. I'm going to go ahead and remove all 5 on this side, and then we'll do the driver's side. We're going to start with this one right here in the front of the block, and look how loose this bolt is. It's finger tight. It's all the way in, but it's finger tight. That's crazy. We removed all the bolts. We just left the middle one on there hand tight. Well, not even tight. It's on there like with a couple of threads. So we're gonna get it from the side. I'm gonna try to get it from here. We have a lot of room because the wheel well was cut up, and we don't have none of that carpet stuff, the wheel liner, so we have a lot of access to this. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it with the camera on. Wow, shit. Actually, let me go up there. Get it out through here. And let's get out as well. So you can see this is where the leak was at with the bolt that was hand tight. I don't even think these are GM gaskets. Oh yeah, they are. They're the original ones. And now I have to do the same process over there on the driver's side, and I think that one's gonna be a little tight because of the dipstick and what else? I forgot what else. So I'm gonna get to that side, and if I get when I get stuck, I'll put you guys on to show you what is going on. So we're gonna remove that heat shield. It has 3 10mm bolts holding it on, and we have to remove it, or we think we have to remove it to get access to the last bolt because it's kind of in the way. So we're gonna just leave it here for now. And we also have to remove the bolt that's holding this dipstick in so we could twist the actual tube out of the way, because we can't get to that 14mm right there, and also the one in the back. With that Torx bolt removed from this dipstick, you can see that it gives it some play. We were able to remove the 13mm all the way in the back. Well, basically all of them except for this middle one, just holding it in. And I don't think we'll be able to set this on anything, but we're gonna take this one out, and then the header should be able to come off. I don't know exactly how we're gonna take it out, but this heat shield basically stuck in here because the thing is gonna have to come off with the header. And you know what? We have to pull the oil dipstick out because I could already see that it's right there. I don't know if you guys can see it. Right there in the header. So I'm trying to pull it off and then pull out the header. So we've been messing with it for a bit, and if we would have read the instructions, we would have seen that it says to remove the steering shaft, 2007 and newer models. Also, we have to remove the transmission cross member, but we're still going to try to do it without removing the cross member. And it also says right here to remove the dipstick tube and the front drive shaft. We're going to try not to remove the drive shaft, but let's see what happens. So this is the bolt we'll have to remove right here. I think it's a 14mm. It's actually like 15. We removed both bolts, the one here and the one up there, and it was just kind of a struggle to get it out. I don't know if it's because of the rust, but there is some like rust in there. We're gonna put a little bit of anti-seize once we put it back. And now we pull this off. We'll have to do it with 2 hands because it's kind of heavy. Now with both of the headers out of the way, we're gonna try to slide this up as much as possible and see if we can get the cat to clear the cross member. We couldn't do it before because the headers were hitting these pipes right here, so we're gonna try it now. I'll put you guys back on and see if it works. I don't even know what I was thinking. This hit the transmission oil pan, so it's not gonna work. We're gonna have to remove the cross member and then drop the white pipe. Oh, shit, man. So I have to remove this from here. And then these 2 bolts, nuts and bolts, and these 2 on this side, and then the 2 nuts holding the cross member to the transmission mount. And we have to support the transmission, I don't know from where, possibly from back here from the transfer case. So we're gonna have to remove these four bolts that hold this cover in place. Okay, so we got the jack underneath the transfer case, just holding it up, and we were able to drop the cross member, except we had to kind of hammer it a little bit and break it loose because there's a little bit of rust, and we were able to drop the white pipe. So now we got to put the cross member back on. We're just gonna slide the bolts in to hold it up, and that way we can remove the jack and see what else we got to do for the header. So we're not gonna bolt this up just yet, we're just gonna put it back in place. So before we remove the oxygen sensors, we're gonna put a little bit of WD-40 in here. I don't know if this is a good idea, but we're gonna do this because we don't want to strip the O2 sensors. So these were actually able to come off pretty easy. Now these we didn't spray any WD-40, so let's see how hard they are. I have to get another wrench. So we used the 2-wrench method to remove this O2 sensor. Well, actually both of the lower O2 sensors. And we're just taking them off because we're gonna store these cats or the whole exhaust system, and we don't want these to get damaged. You could already see this one is a bit damaged right there. Kind of doesn't look like there's wires exposed, but you never know. Okay, so now that we have the stock headers out the way, we're gonna start, I think, with the passenger side because that seems to be the easiest one. So we're gonna slide the header in from underneath the truck. We're just gonna remove this V-band, well, the clamp, and we're gonna bolt it up using the new hardware. This was, I think, for the flange that it came with, which we're not gonna use. And I think these are for the actual header to block. Header to heads. So we have to install these. So we're gonna slide the header in, but we forgot to clean the surface up there. So I'm just gonna get a rag and wipe all that down just to make sure it's completely clean. And we're also gonna wipe the flange on here where the gasket meets the header, just to make sure there's no debris. And then we're gonna slide it in from underneath. We decided to remove the wheel just so we could get more access to this section right here. With the wheel out of the way, you can see how much more room we have. And we have the truck jacked up from the control arm, which I think is not a good idea, but this is gonna be real quick. So we're gonna go ahead and wipe all this down, make sure that there's no debris on there. It looks pretty good. I mean, there's nothing noticeable, just a lot of that carbon buildup. And this will also give us a lot more access to put in the bolts that go from the header to the head. We hit that surface with the blade and we got most of the buildup off. And then we kind of wiped this down because there was some residue from I don't know what. So now we got the hardware and we have this here. So this, if you guys, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says the exhaust side right here. So this side goes towards the exhaust like this, and then the shiny side goes towards the heads. So we're gonna thread in, I think, 2 bolts just to hold the gasket in place, and we're gonna slide them up there, and then I'll put you guys back on once the header is hand tight on the heads. So we got this side in. We just put all the bolts hand tight and they look pretty good. Way better than having this. Big difference. So I'm thinking while we're here, we might as well put the O2 sensor back in. It's gonna be kind of tight because of this firewall. Oh shit, I don't even know if we're gonna be able to put it. Oh yeah, so it's gonna be kind of tight because we got the firewall right here, but we should be able to get it on there. All right, so we got this tight, and this actually reaches the plug up here, so we're gonna connect that. Shit, I was doing it wrong. Make sure it doesn't come off. Okay, now we could torque these bolts. For this kit, these bolts are 11 millimeter, and we're gonna torque them to 20 foot-pounds. I read on the internet that it was anywhere from 17 to 20, so we're just gonna go with 20 since we're using a cheap little Craftsman torque wrench. Well, actually it says 18, but we're gonna go to 20 just in case this thing doesn't torque right. We got all the bolts torqued down. Now we're gonna put these little clips with some tabs that come with the kit. Okay, so we have these with the little bend right here. So we have 6 of these, and then we have 4 of these. they're completely flat. So since we have 4, we're gonna use these 4 on the ends, so 1 and 1, and then on the other side as well. And then these, we're gonna use them on the middle. So this is what it looks like with the clip installed. So we got all the clips in, and we were gonna start putting the spark plug wires back on, but we still haven't received the boots for the spark plugs in the mail. We're gonna put some boots on the spark plug wires because of the heat. But one thing we forgot to mention as well is that there is no clearance issues with these headers, like at all. The only place where it comes pretty close to the firewall is right there with the oxygen sensor, but it's good as you can see. And also, I know Kooks and possibly other brands sell extensions for this cable here. I think it's on the passenger side, most likely it's on the passenger side. But even when this truck was lowered, we did have the extension on here, and the shop that installed the headers, they just chopped up the original cable. Well, not the original cable for the truck, but the original extension. I don't know why, but they ended up making a mess. And then when we got underneath to fix the issue and replace the O2 sensor, we found out that this is on a zip tie. When it's in a stock truck, it's just in a zip tie set to the side, so you're able to just pull it out and extend it a little longer, and you'll have the same amount of reach. So we wouldn't have bought the extension if we would have known that. But just in case, if you guys are looking into the extensions for this plug, keep that in mind. Maybe check your truck before you order the extension. It's not a lot, but either way, we prefer to have the plug directly to the O2 sensor and not the extension piece. But you can see that there is no clearance issues at all. Get in there and around here. And it also mentions in the instructions that there's a possibility of it not clearing the starter. Something about the starter, so you have to like unplug it, put the header in, then put the cable back on. But with this one, seems like we're not gonna have that issue at all, so we're good. One more thing, when we installed these little locking tabs, we made sure that they were at the furthest position to the left as possible. So this, I guess, is to prevent the bolt from backing off. So let's say if you were to install this with the little bend all the way over here, then the bolt will have all this movement, maybe like a quarter turn to back off. So if you put it closest to the flange right here, then it'll just hit the flange and it won't back off anymore. Also with this one, you can see it's almost touching the tube right here, and the one on the front, same thing. So it just has a tiny bit of space to back off, and then it'll stop. So just keep that in mind as well. So now let's go over to the driver's side and start figuring out how we're gonna get the header in on that side. So for the driver's side, we were able to slide the header in from the top. We already went ahead and cleaned the heads and the surface right here. We just wiped it down, and we didn't have to remove the front axle. So I think from the bottom we would have had the same amount of clearance, but we went ahead and did it from the top. Either way, I think it's a lot better on this side. So we're gonna put the gasket and the bolts, same thing as the passenger side. And then for the for the passenger side, we had to remove this from this bracket. So we gotta put this back. And then what else has to be removed? And that's it, I think, for that side. So I'll put you guys back on once we're done with the driver's side. We still gotta put the oil dipstick back on. And we left the steering shaft out, this piece. So that's what gave us the clearance to be able to slide these in. We're done torquing it down. We got all the locks on, all the little clips, and there's no clearance issue that we could see from up here. So this side is pretty much done except for the spark plug wires. But like I said, we're waiting for the boots. So here on the driver's side, we have the O2 sensor bung real close to the drive shaft, the front drive shaft. See, we're gonna try to thread this in and get it tight. It should clear, I think. And the wire is long enough to reach the plug up there. I'm gonna get a 22. Down there tight. Now, I'm gonna have to do this off camera because it's pretty tight up here to get the plug back in and then slide down the clip. I can't even show you guys, but it's up there. See? There, that plug right there. All right, so the plug is in, and I don't think the wire's gonna get in the way of anything. And actually seeing the truck from underneath, this drive shaft would have to come off because we wouldn't have been able to put the long tubes in through underneath. It looks like it's pretty tight right here, so it was a good idea to drop them in from the top because it had no clearance issues at all. We're gonna put this oil dipstick back in, but we're going to put a little bit of the oil here on the O-ring so it can slide in, and it's gonna go way down there. Barely even see the hole. We're gonna try to get it in and then put the bolt back on. We got the oil dipstick in. Now we're going to put this piece to the shaft back in. We'll put a little bit of anti-seize in there on both ends because it was getting pretty rusty. So we can slide this in and then slide the other side back in as well. So I'm gonna put both bolts in, size 15, then get them tight. Now that we have this back on, the oil dipstick is in. I don't think we're missing anything from the passenger side or the driver's side. So we could get underneath the truck and bolt up the cross member. We actually got the spark plugs back in just because we want to start it up. And the cross member's all bolted up. And what else? We kind of went over everything just to make sure that everything's nice and tight. So we're actually going to turn it on right now. Show you guys what it sounds like. Let me set you guys up in a tripod and then I'll turn on the truck. That was super loud. We had to turn it off because the check engine light is on. I think that's due to the two rear O2 sensors not being plugged in. We have to make an appointment for the rest of the exhaust to get done. Once that is done, we're gonna get the truck tuned by New Era. The truck is on long tube headers, cold air intake, and E85, and it's also geared to 456s. So these headers didn't have any clearance issues or anything. We did get the V-bands installed, like I said, because of the leaks with the clamps. And we also used GM exhaust manifold gaskets instead of the ones that came with this kit. We are still waiting on the boots for the spark plug wires. We just threw them on just so we could turn it on for you guys. So make sure to check us out on Instagram at Yonke_OXC Films. I'll leave that in the description down below, and we'll catch you on the next one.